Alright guys, welcome to this new episode of Code Researcher. On this new episode, we will be talking about the single child scroll view widget in Flutter. If you are new to Flutter and you are a beginner, or if you've been working with Flutter for some time, you would have encountered this error or these issues where when your items becomes longer than the screen, when your element or a list of items become longer than the phone's default screen, Flutter normally tells you that there is an overflow. Your elements have horizontally overflowed the screen. Your elements has vertically overflowed the screen, right? So this is an issue that if you are new to Flutter, if you've worked with Flutter before, you would have experienced. So on this new episode of Code Researcher, I am coming to take you through how to get rid of that error or that issue, and also show you one very important widget that you can use to get rid of that issue. So stick around, stick with me, and let's get started. So as you can see on our screen here, we have our demo app running, which I always do, or which we always do. So on this app, let me first test if it is running. So yeah, it is running, it is working. So from here, we would create a class, or we will create a home class where we would reference in the main app. So, and then from that home class, we will develop our screen and then learn about how to get rid of the overflow issues. So on this page, I am going to create a new directory called home. And then when I create this directory, we will create a .dat file, a new file called the home. And after creating the home, we will create a stateful widget, which will take the home as name. Then we have to reference this home in our main app, right? So for now, let's just return scaffold. Let's return scaffold. Yeah. So after creating this, let's go to our main app, reference our home. So that becomes the primary page that we see when we create the app. Where is our main? Where is our main? Yeah. So this is the home. We can just reference our home from here, right? So let's call home. Then we have this. All right. So let's rerun our app. When we run our app, we should have our home, which is just an empty scaffold with no child, right? So let's get that. If that is working, then we'll now create an app bar. Let's create a little app bar in the scaffold and call it, and give it a title. Let's give it a title, which we will call single child scroll view. And then we would, our title, let's put our title in a text widget. All right. Then we will center the title as true. Yeah. So let's refresh, and we should have this running. Yeah. So our app bar is working. Now let's go to the body and tackle the main issue, right? So let's say in the body, we have center. And then inside center, we have child, which is column. And then column has children. So with these children, we can create something like list.generate. The length, let's generate 25 items, and then give it an index. Then we open and close bracket. So that item, let's use a container as the item. So we return a container. Then this container we'll have a height. Let's give it a height of 50, and then a width of let's give it a width of, let's make it fill the whole screen, right? So let's make it double dot infinity, and then let's give it a decoration, and then box decoration, and then give it a color, which will be red. Let's give it a red color, and then let's design the borders. So we give it a circular border radius, and then let's say 25. So when we run this code, we should have 25 containers, which will be rectangles, 25 rectangles that will fill out our screen, right? So let's do that. So as you can see, we have 25 items on the screen, but currently we have the bottom overflow issue, which we always talk about. The one that made us start this session, the bottom overflow issue. All right. So we are going to learn how to tackle this issue so that our items will be scrollable, vertically scrollable. So let's put some padding around these items. Let's put some padding around these items so that they will be separated from each other. So as you can see, we have very nice looking items. We can make the height 70. Yeah, so we have this. Now we would have to make it scrollable. So there are a lot of ways of creating scrollable widgets or scrollable items in Flutter, right? But in this session, in this episode, we are tackling one scrollable widget, which is the SingleChildScrollView widget. That widget is very, very, very good. You can use it to define the scroll axis, where you can use it to horizontally scroll items. You can also use it to vertically scroll items. So for now, we are dealing with vertical items. So let's call our SingleChildScrollView and see if we'll be able to tackle this issue. So let's go back to the code. And then before the column, we will wrap this column inside a SingleChildScrollView. We can decide to wrap the whole body, which is the center, in a SingleChildScrollView. So instead of the column, let's go wrapping the body. So we can first take this off, make cuts, and then for the body, we call our SingleChildScrollView. Then we give it a child, which will be the column, the center, and then its children. So let's run this and see what we got. So as you can see, the error is gone, the issue is gone, and now we have our items that are scrollable. So that is the magic when it comes to scrolling items on in Flutter, right? Yeah. So as you can see, our screen is now scrolling. We've solved our issue and everything is looking good. So now the next thing we can do is to learn the horizontal scroll, right? So currently this is a vertical scroll. We have our items scrolling in a vertical form. That's the simplest widget, or the most basic way and simplest, fastest way of scrolling or adding a scroll activity or scroll operation or scroll effect to your items, right? So that's one of the simplest ways. This is one of the simplest ways of adding a scroll effect to your items or your widgets in a Flutter, right? So this is for vertical scroll. Now let's implement a horizontal scroll. Yeah. So instead of having those items in a column, we can now change the column to row. So let's run our app to see if this element will scroll or will still get the overflow effect or overflow error. So let's go in and run our app. So I'm rerunning the app. Let's wait and see what we got. So as you can see, it's giving us a white screen because our layout is way out of control, right? So let's put our layout back, let's put it in order, and then we'll see what we do next. So from here, we are taking away the scroll child or the scroll view from the main or the body, and let's rerun the app and see what we got. Okay, so we are now changing this width. Let's change this width to, let's say, 100. Now let's make it 50. And then let's make the height 150. All right, so let's rerun and see what we have. So you can see what we have. We have our elements in a row, but we can't scroll them because there is no scroll effect or there is no scroll effect that we've added to it. Therefore, it will give us an overflow issue. So the best way or the fastest way to get rid of this problem is to wrap the row, right? Is to wrap the row in a single child scroll view. So we're going to wrap our row inside a single child scroll view. And then when you do that, by default, single child scroll view runs in a vertical axis. It runs on the vertical axis. So when you want to scroll in a vertical form, you don't need to specify the axis. But if you want to scroll in a row form, then you have to specify the row. So for now, we won't add the specification. We won't define the axis. We'll just run the app, see what we got, whether it will work or not, and then we later specify the axis and see whether it will work or not. So let's rerun our app and confirm. So we're rerunning the app. The app is done running, but we still have our issue. So now let's specify the axis, right? So let's say scroll direction, and then we give it horizontal, right? Axis dot horizontal. Then let's rerun the app. Yeah. So as you can see, our error is gone. Our issue is no more there. And now we can scroll our items horizontally. Can you see that? That is the power of single child scroll view, right? So there are different ways to manipulate scroll effects in Flutter, but this is one of the best, the simplest, and the easiest way to go using a single child scroll view, right? So one thing we can also do is to scroll elements in the vertical axis and also scroll elements in the horizontal axis. So let's try to create vertical elements and also create horizontal elements and see if we can scroll all this together. So we have this, which is one section. So what we are going to do is wrap our center. We can pick this for now, which is this. We can keep this in our clipboard for now. And then in the center, we will create a column. We create a column, we create a children. We create a children, we can just use list. We will generate new children for the column. This is the generate. We are generating like, let's say 15 children and pass the index of each children, and then we'll open and close bracket, right? Yeah, so when we do that, we return our container again. We return our container, and then we'll decorate our container, right? So we will give it a height of 80, and then a width of let us make it fill the screen. So we do double the infinity, and then we give it a decoration where to take a box decoration, and then we give it a color, and then we give it a green color. And then we also want to design the borders, so we do borders, radius, circular, then we make it 25. Yeah. So now we know that when we run this, we are going to get an error. So we just wrap it in the SingleChildScrollView, right? So let's do that. We have our SingleChildScrollView, so let's rerun our app. This is the easiest and the fastest way, the fastest tutorial to teaching you how to control your list or your scroll elements or your scroll effect in your app, right? So we're just going to put this in a padding. We'll put all this in a padding, and then we put a space in between them here to have them well aligned. When we scroll, they are scrolling very nicely. So we have our column with each children, which is scrolling very well. So now what we'll just do is after this, we have this center. So this center can be a column. Let's make it a column. So we have this. And then after the center, we paste our SingleChildScrollView, which is the row, right? So let's rerun our app. Now we can have our vertical scroll and then our horizontal scroll. That is how beautiful SingleChildScrollView is. So we have rerun the app. Let's test and see what we got. So we can see the scroll is working all right. And then in the bottom, we have the horizontal scroll, right? So as we can see, this is also working all right. We have our vertical scroll, and then we have our horizontal scroll. That is the work, that is the magic, and that is the sweet thing when it comes to Flutter app development. The widgets are so easy to go with, they are very simple to implement, and they make your life so better. So if this video helped you, if you've learned something new, if this is your first time here or you've always been here, like the video, comment in the comment section, subscribe, and then share with your friend. I'll see you on the next episode, Coding with Secho. Subscribe, and I'll see you. Bye-bye.